Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. So even as I'm saying this, I'm kind of aware that this could be a pretty controversial video. You might have seen the title and thought, someone who isn't Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine? No thanks. And I get it. Hugh Jackman and his version of the character have become staples of pop culture for the last 20 years or so. And on top of that, he went out on what may very well be his finest work as the character in Logan. Many of us are probably on the same page there. But let's be honest, a new Wolverine is going to be cast whether we like it or not, especially with the likely MCU reboot of the X-Men on the way. In an older video, I outlined what I would like to see in a new version of the X-Men, and in it, I mentioned that I don't think they should introduce a new Wolverine in the first film. Since he was basically the lead of much of the Fox franchise, I think they should let the other, kinda previously ignored members of the team get established well before bringing in everyone's favorite angry Canadian. I totally stand by that, but when we do eventually get to this new Logan, what should he look like? Anyone who takes up the Wolverine mantle will inevitably be compared to Jackman. So I think it's worth asking who is his version of Logan, and how could a new actor bring a fresh take to the table that's still in line with what people love about the character.
Marvel Comics X-Men, today's most popular superheroes!
Saturday morning's hottest TV show!
And America's favorite comic book!
First off, I should say that with a character like Wolverine, who has been written by so many writers, drawn by so many artists, and put in so many wildly different series over the decades, nailing down one quote-unquote real comics accurate version is kind of a fool's errand. Wolverine in the 70s doesn't act like Wolverine in the 90s, who rarely acts like the Wolverine found in comics today. I think that's okay. It's a natural part of new creators bringing new things to the characters. What's important, I think, is staying true to the core of the character, and that can be tough, because how one person views Logan may be pretty different from the person next to them. To me, Wolverine is a character who has been through so much, and has always had such an element of mystery to him, that I think he's actually more malleable than most. That being said, for me personally, the core of Wolverine is his rebellion and moral conflict. He's the ultimate loner who, in the context of the X-Men, is forced to grow and be part of a team. He's really conflicted over how much violence and pain he's caused, even as he continues to cause more violence in the name of doing the right thing, and often comes off like he's having a great time doing it. And I think Hugh Jackman's Wolverine embodied those traits pretty well, but he was also playing what I like to call the leading man Logan. Maybe you kinda know what I'm talking about. When Hugh Jackman was cast, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the fact that he was 6'2", significantly taller than most versions of Logan in the comic, whose short, stout stature was one of his most defining features. But really, that was just the beginning of Wolverine getting a leading man makeover. Sure, they stuck with his weird hair for a bit and the mutton chops, but especially as the series went on, it was clear that they wanted Jackman to look like most other comic book movie actors. Well, up until the older, grizzled version of him in Logan. The thing is, that's not really what I think of when I think of Wolverine. It's not just that he's short, it's kind of his entire look, and the framing of his personality on screen. My favorite version of Wolverine, or at least early Wolverine, is a short, angry, hairy, and honestly kind of ugly guy who has seen more cruelty and death in his life than most of the X-Men can even fathom. But he doesn't constantly brood over it like Batman. Well, maybe sometimes. Mostly, he tries to have a gallows humor type of ironic detachment from it. He still has a lot of emotion, and that tends to come out in powerful bursts of anger. But for the most part, he expresses himself by kind of being a detached asshole, constantly making fun of the ultra-earnest Cyclops, even if, at the end of the day, he respects Scott Summers' leadership because it's something he knows he wouldn't be great at.
Mutant power within.
Logan's claws extend, just like in the movie, to do battle with Sabretooth's swiping attack.
In a way, he's kind of the Cordelia of the group. Not the one from King Lear though, the one from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay, I know that sounds weird, but bear with me for a second here. Joss Whedon, creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, and the director of the first 2 Avengers films, actually wrote one of my all-time favorite X-Men runs ever on Astonishing. His Wolverine really fit the role that I love to see him in. Whedon is a big believer in the idea that in every ensemble group cast, there needs to be someone that will say the thing no one else will say, is perfectly willing to make everyone else uncomfortable, and just generally stirs the pot and kind of acts as the most cynical voice of the audience. In Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this role was filled by Cordelia Chase, the self-absorbed homecoming queen with no real filter, but who would rise to the occasion when needed. On Firefly, it was Jane Cobb, a gruff hired gunman who was always willing to cut through all the good feelings and friendship on the tight-knit space crew in the name of getting paid and staying alive. Wolverine predates both of them and is amazing at fulfilling that role in X-Men stories. Now, he doesn't have the same motivations as either of those characters, but his effect can be the same. He's the one willing to call people out, start a fight, and say the thing that someone in the group might need to hear but no one else is gonna say. And that is the Wolverine that I want to find in the MCU. I also think it's important that this new series treats Logan's asshole-ish behavior differently. Think about how Wolverine is framed in the first X-Men film. He's one of the first characters we meet, and we follow him and Rogue as they, like the audience, is introduced to Professor X's school for the very first time. Then we meet Cyclops, who right off the bat acts like an entitled, antagonistic, preppy moron, and the romantic rival for our lead character. This immediately puts us on Wolverine's side, so when he makes quips at Cyclops' expense, there's no question that we're in his corner. This is kind of boring to me. I think it's a lazy way to get around one of Wolverine's most defining characteristics. He's kind of a jerk who, especially initially, has trouble functioning on a team. I'd love to see the scenario more flipped around in the MCU's version. Sure, Cyclops isn't perfect, and he can come off as a bit too much of a goody two-shoes, but like Captain America, he's just out there trying his best, and trying to give his team the leadership they need so no one gets killed. If that's introduced to the audience first, later on when Wolverine undermines him with a wisecrack while smoking an obnoxiously big cigar, we might laugh, but we're not totally on his side either. He's a good guy at heart, but that doesn't mean he's always in the right. I think just that change in framing could make a new Wolverine stand out and make a big impression as one part of a strong ensemble cast. But who should play him, you might be asking? Well, honestly, I think they should go for a complete unknown here, much like they did with Hugh Jackman. One, so that there's not a lot of baggage that an actor can bring to the role, like Ben Affleck did with Batman. But also because short, hairy, barrel-chested guys like this version of Wolverine isn't exactly something that Hollywood has a lot of. I'm kind of picturing a young James Caan. Someone who can come off as quick-witted but also has an angry edge to him that really makes you think he could fly off the handle at any moment. But like I said, those kind of actors don't exactly grow on trees, so Marvel would really need to do a worldwide search. After all, when Jackman was cast, he'd really only had experience with Australian TV shows and musicals.
Now it's my turn!
In the end, I think that embracing the aspects of Logan that aren't the good-looking Hollywood leading man type attributes could create a really exciting take on the character. We've already seen that version of Wolverine, and now I want to see something different. Something a little more like his single scene in X-Men First Class.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lenstra.
Charles Xavier.
Go yourself.
Wolverine is a reluctant hero, and I think it's time to underline that reluctance. I said at the beginning that this video could be controversial. Maybe you totally disagree with me, or maybe you mostly agree but have a few more thoughts on it as well. Either way, I know there's a lot of people out there who are just like I was not too long ago, wishing that I could make a living by creating things online. If that sounds like you, I have a course that you need to check out. Stand out and make money on YouTube, from the YouTuber Draw with Jazza on Skillshare. It's a very blunt title, and that's because this is a series that gets right down to the business of making what you want online, while also being able to make rent. And let's be honest, that's pretty important. And that's just the beginning of the more than 25,000 classes that Skillshare has to offer on all kinds of subjects. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. Join the millions already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for my viewers. To sign up, visit the link in the description, and those first 500 visitors will get that 2 months of unlimited access to over 25,000 courses for free. So go to skl.sh/CaptainMidnight12.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes.